Okay, this is test 8, section 5, and these are the short passages with 2 questions each per passage. So now I'm going to read and talk out loud about my thoughts about the second passage. Okay, the first stage of Europe's conquest of northeastern North America was the traders' phase. Okay, so after I read the first sentence, I do like to predict what will come in the following sentences. So I am guessing that this particular paragraph will be about the various stages of Europe's conquest of northeastern America, so the traders phase, and then what happened after that. Okay, casual contacts and exchanges with visiting explorers and fishermen began on a basis that was not unfamiliar to the Native Americans. So this is a weird phrase, not unfamiliar. It is like a double negative where it's just emphasizing that these kinds of interactions actually were familiar to Native Americans. So Native Americans were used to interacting with explorers and fishermen. Okay, so now we're at line 5. Metal, glass, or cloth items were exchanged for furs in a setting that was unprecedented only in the strangeness of the visitors and their wares. Okay. So, unprecedented, you may have heard this when Barack Obama was elected because it was the first time that an African American was elected, and unprecedented means it has never happened before. And you also may have heard this on a legal show because precedents are cases in the past that are similar to cases in the future. So if you have a case that's not like any other case that has ever happened before, that would be an unprecedented situation, meaning it's never happened before. A precedent is something that has happened in the past that's similar to something happening currently. So this is actually a pretty popular SAT word, so this is one that you should know. So this sentence is saying that this setting where these explorers were trading their items, or this, not the setting, the situation had never happened before. And the thing that was different about it was that the visitors were so strange and the things that they were trading were so unusual. So the wares are the items that they're trading. Okay. But as casual exchanges became systematic, meaning as uh, these instances of trading became more common and carried out in the same way often, the Native Americans began altering their subsistence and residential patterns to obtain more furs. Okay, so this sounds important to me because this is a major change for the Native Americans. So they're altering their subsistence, which means the way they're supporting themselves and living, and their residential patterns, meaning that they're moving around so that they can get the most furs that they possibly can from these traders. Okay, and line 10, as a result, they grew dependent on their European trading partners. So instead of going out and finding the furs themselves, they became dependent on getting these furs from the European traders. Uh, their trading partners while frequently entering into competition with one another. So one another refers to the Native Americans. So they are fighting with each other. They're competing with each other for the wares that the explorers have for them, the furs. Now we're at the final sentence. In the end, the principles of reciprocity and equality were substantially undermined by the ethics and imperatives of the traders. Okay, this is one of the more confusing sentences that I've encountered on the SAT. So, reciprocity, this means that there's a equal give and take. If I give you something, you're going to give me something back. So, this was one of the principles that was undermined. Equality, we all know what equality means. It means people getting a fair exchange of goods or rights, things being fair. Undermined is a tough word that you might have not encountered. Undermined means called into question or kind of violated or taken away in this instance. So it's saying that reciprocity, I'm going to say fairness because they say reciprocity and equality were undermined. That's saying that fairness was eroded, fairness was hurt by the ethics, meaning the moral values of the explorers and the traders, and imperatives, means their purposes, the reasons that they're there. So overall, this is depicting the traders in a negative light, saying that they came in and changed the way that the Native Americans functioned and essentially hurt the Native Americans, and that it was unfair. They were trading items that just weren't of equal value. So overall, we'll expect the correct answer choices to imply that the traders were exploiting the Native Americans. Let's just check out the questions and see what kinds of ideas they want us to pull out of this reading. Okay, 11. The passage suggests that contact between Native Americans and Europeans ultimately did what? So ultimately means in the end, and we really know that from this last sentence. We know it's going to be fairly negative. Okay. A, decreased Native American reliance on fur trade. So we know this is not true because we have a fact directly contradicting this. It says that the Native Americans became more dependent. Let's see where that is. They grew dependent on their European trading partners. Okay, so this is not true. It's the opposite of the truth. And that's a common wrong answer where they'll give you the exact opposite of what is true from the passage. Okay, B. The passage suggests that contact between Native Americans and Europeans ultimately distorted relationships among Native Americans. So distorted means changed, transformed, and we're looking for support that the trading changed the relationships among Native Americans. So we do have good support for this. This sounds pretty good to me. The place that we have support for this is where they say that they entered into competition with one another. So that is, let's see. Okay, yes, it says the Native Americans began altering. Oh, whoops. Okay. Native Americans began altering their subsistence and residential patterns to obtain more furs. They grew dependent on their European trading partners, and here's the part that really supports this answer choice, while frequently entering into competition with one another. So this did change the relationships among Native Americans. So this looks pretty good. Let's see the other choices and think about those choices. Okay. The contact between Native Americans and Europeans ultimately led to Native American economic independence. Independence is not true. It led to economic dependence, so that's wrong. Decimated the population of fur-bearing animals. I suppose this is possible. Decimated means it completely destroyed the population of animals that could offer their furs to traders that traders could use to get the furs. We just have no evidence of this. There's no indication that the number of furs decreased. There is indication that there's competition for these furs, but no evidence that the actual number of furs is diminishing. Okay, and E, this relationship between Native Americans and Europeans ultimately increased competition among European traders. This sounds right, but we don't have any evidence of this. We only have evidence of the competition increasing among Native Americans. We don't have evidence of the competition increasing among European traders, so that one's wrong. So B is the best answer. Okay, and number 12, lines 5 through 7 suggest that Native Americans primarily viewed the European traders as blank. So here, we're looking for the way that Native Americans viewed the traders, and we do need to take this evidence just from these lines. And I would caution you to not try and pull information from other parts of the passage. You should certainly, in my opinion, read the whole passage, but you don't need to use other parts of the passage to answer this question. You should be taking most of your evidence just from these lines. Okay, so what do these lines say about the way the Native Americans viewed the European traders? So let's look at these lines. Okay, metal, glass, or cloth items were exchanged for furs in a setting that was unprecedented, not only in the strangeness of the visitors, unprecedented only in the strangeness of the visitors and their wares. Okay, so we are looking for something that essentially says strangeness and novelty, maybe something that means newness, since they say that this situation was unprecedented. Okay, so reserved means that you're kind of holding back, that you're kind of conventional. Arrogant means that you're stuck up and full of yourself. You think you're better than other people. Exotic, you probably know this word. This just means kind of different and new and foreign. Capricious, you probably don't know. Capricious means impulsive and constantly changing your mind. And we don't have any evidence that the Native Americans thought of the traders like this. As far as we know, the traders always wanted the same thing. They always wanted to trade items with the Native Americans, so they're not capricious in the view of the Native Americans. And grasping means, taking something, just grabbing for something. And there's just not evidence that the Native Americans view the European traders in this way. So exotic is the best answer. And I guess I would say grasping and capricious are the two most common wrong answers, and people get drawn to capricious because they don't know what it means and they know they're taking the SAT, so they think a fancy word would be great. Don't pick words for that reason. If there's a simple word that is accurate, then make sure you pick that word. And grasping, this word they might choose if they were kind of ignoring the line references. Those line references only emphasize that the situation was new and strange. They don't emphasize that the traders are trying to grab items. So for 12, E is not a good answer.